Hey Dee, did that swelling in your hand that you got because an assassin bug attacked you, did that go away while you were in England? It looked pretty bad on the pictures you sent me.
It was pretty bad. It didn't completely go away. I can now wear my larger anniversary ring, but I still can't wear my wedding ring. And it took forever for it to go down. My whole hand swelled. Don't get bit by an assassin bug.
Don't wear gloves. And I tell you, my new go-to gloves, we talked about mulberry weed sticking to your gloves.
Yep.
I have so much of that. I now, those blue latex gloves that you can buy at Sam's Club or whatever.
Right.
I bought a box of those, and that's my go-to weeding glove now. And then when I'm done weeding, my hands get wet inside from sweat. Let's throw them away. But then mulberry weed doesn't stick to them.
Yeah, I guess not. Normally I wear gloves, but that day I didn't, and I should have. I like these Atlas gloves, which are they're bamboo, and then or nitrile. I think they're nitrile. And then they've got the plasticky, rubbery stuff. And the mulberry weeds don't stick too bad to them, too. And my garden is full of mulberry weeds. So that's a good piece of advice from you.
Yes. And the other thing I bought at Costco, they were on clearance for $10, a 2 pair of leather work gloves.
Wow.
And I bought those, and I wore those when I was doing some branch trimming and stuff, and they are the bomb. They are the best. I'm like, wow, I wish I'd bought another 2 pair, because you go through those things.
Yeah, you do. I wore leather gloves when we were doing all that tree trimming from the ice storm.
Anyway, that's our glove talk. We should get a glove company to sponsor us. In the meantime, hit it, Dee. We're back.
Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on 7.5 acres out in the country. That's too large, a garden.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about 1/3 of an acre, but I feel like I have 7.5 acres of weeds right now.
Me too. We call ourselves Garden Angelus because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening, and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do, and we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. How is your garden?
It's great. We are back to recording just a matter of days before we publish it, so my garden is in pretty good shape, but I want to hear about yours, because we can tell people now that nobody can break in and steal your stuff that you were in the Cotswolds in England for 2 weeks.
I was in the Cotswolds, and then I went to Amsterdam, spent a couple of days at Floriada, and came back. I thought it was Floriade, the big gardening festival that happens every 10 years. No, a nice Dutch person said, no, it's Floriada. So now we know.
Now we know.
So I came home and I found that the watering system had turned off on my tomatoes in the pots. So everybody was looking very parched.
Oh, I can imagine.
It was the timers that turned off. And I don't know why, because we replaced all those timers before we left. I've almost got a theory that when that water comes on so fast with the timer, it jiggles that timer slightly. And I think over time it turns it to the off position, because it's the same 2 ones.
Huh.
I don't know. That's just the theory I have. Anyway, there were like 3 beds that were turned off. And so they're all okay, because we actually got 3/4 of an inch of rain a few days before I came back in town. So nothing died, but boy, it looked bad. And then let's see. Other than that, I worked in the potager pulling out some more spent stuff, and I did some weeding in the perennial garden. And I'll be honest, that's about it. I had jet lag.
I can imagine. Well, I am pleased to report in my garden, the green bean crisis of 2022 is over. I am now picking green beans like nobody's business. Picked another 1.5 pounds this morning. So, and I'm weeding.
There you go. Yes.
I ordered bulbs to plant this fall. And for the first time in maybe a dozen years, I did not buy more crocuses for the back lawn. So I want to see how many come up, how full is it really without me planting anything.
Right.
But I got some of that Allium Schubertii, which look like big sparklers. I'm going to plant that in front.
So pretty.
That's going to be pretty.
I just want to say for Oklahoma gardeners, all of those tall alliums really hate our summers. So I'm not saying don't buy them because some of them, I mean, they put on a great show the first year, but they don't come back like they do in the Northeast. Okay, keep going.
Well, and then I did buy some Tommy crocuses, some little blue ones called Hummingbird. And I bought some more Tulipas sylvestris, which are the yellow woodland tulips. And then some blue windflowers. And those are all going to go in the front garden beds. So it'll have like a blue and yellow theme going. So now I can harass people to buy their bulbs because I don't have to worry about mine being sold out. I got mine.
I haven't bought any yet. I'm thinking about it. I think I actually want some more of the little irises that I plant right outside this window.
Oh, the iris reticulata?
Yeah, I really, really love those right outside my window, right outside this door, because I can see it as I work, and I love that.
Yes. Oh, definitely get some of those. Our friends at Old House Gardens, I saw in their newsletter, they talked about the variety Catherine Hodgkin, which
I love that one.
That's a very pretty one. I didn't realize it was like a heritage one. And then they said something like it was from the 70s. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. To have heritage bulbs from the 70s, not possible.
I think that means we're heritage now. Do you want to do the first? Do you want to do the first quote?
I'm going to. What other country could possibly have come up with place names like Tooting Beck and Farley Wallop, or a game like cricket that goes on for 3 days and never seems to start? And that's by Bill Bryson.
So what country are we talking about, Carol?
Oh, we're talking about England because the title of this episode is What Can You Find in an English Garden? So this week's flower, I thought, okay, Dee, what flower did you most see on your tour of the Cotswolds?
And according to our notes, you guessed that it would be delphiniums and larkspur, which, if I were there in June, which is when I wish I had been there, you would have seen those in spades. I saw very few delphiniums. I saw absolutely no larkspur. So here's what I mostly saw. I saw Japanese anemones, very popular, very tall sunflowers, a few sweet peas hanging on, which I got to smell and made me so happy. A few roses here and there. There was one garden that was just mostly roses, and they were on their rebloom. I saw the most interesting flower to everybody from the Northeast, because the group I went with, mostly they were from Rhode Island. But there were a couple of ladies from North Dakota, a couple of people that were Rhode Island transplants from California, and a couple of ladies from New York, okay? Most everybody was from Rhode Island. It was the crinum.
Oh, yeah. Not hardy here. We cry for crinums. Crinums are not hardy here.
So these women kept dragging me over to the crinums and asking me what they were because they were in full spectacular bloom. And the Cotswolds, I would say if we related them to zones in the U.S., I'd say there's zone 8. So Dallas, Texas. Okay, so I saw that. I saw some Phlox paniculata, and I saw monkshood for the first time in a garden. I'd never seen it. So poisonous. So beautiful.
And poisonous. Did we mention the poisonous part? I will never grow it because it's so poisonous.
It is. The sap is poisonous, I think, too. Loads of lavender. But none of those were the number one flower. I posted about the number one flower yesterday on Instagram.
And it was dahlias.
Dahlias, darling. So I was in a garden and there was a long herbaceous border and the dahlias were gorgeous. And there was an English couple that were off to my right and I'm taking all these pictures of dahlias. And the guy turns to me and he says, the dahlias are looking really good today. And I said, the dahlias are. And he said, he said, oh, you're American. I said, I am. And he said, we say dahlias. And I said, we say dahlias. And I said, tomato. And then he looked at me kind of funny. He goes, we do say tomato. I said, you do. And I said, we won't call the whole thing off. And I said, potato. I mean, it was just hilarious. It was one of those moments. And it was like the Cole Porter song. So dahlias. All kinds of dahlias. Now, I have never seen so many dahlias.
They do not have to dig their dahlias in the wintertime, do they?
No, they're zone 8. So
I know. So here,
there's
I mean,
no
all I think
way.
is, oh, that's a lot of work because you really should dig them up and store them over the winter. It's like, that's a lot of work, but they are beautiful.
And in Oklahoma, I think that's a lot of work because you can still leave them in the ground here most of the time. Sometimes you'll lose them, especially if your drainage isn't good. But well, you know what I hate about dahlias? Grasshoppers.
Well, you hate grasshoppers make you hate a lot of things.
Right. So my point is, why would you spend so much time and energy on a flower that a grasshopper is just going to eat? I don't know. I mean, it depends on what kind of year we have. This year, the grasshoppers were fierce. So,
but dahlias are one of those things, one of those flowers. And I watched 2 episodes of Gardener's World this weekend. I watched this weekend's and the previous. I don't know which one it was. But there was that one. Yeah, there was that one lady who grew the dahlias. She was a hoot. She was a hoot.
I didn't see that one. That must have been on 21. I just watched 20. So dahlias do great there. And they needed something that did great because their gardens were in bad shape. These are people that aren't used to watering.
And they had to water. And then they have hose pipes, right?
They have hose pipes instead of hoses. And actually down in Suffolk, which is just south of where we were, there was a hose pipe ban.
Yeah.
So they couldn't water at all.
That's
because
bad.
They're an island. They don't have a ton of water and they're used to it falling from the sky. And they grow their grass a 1/4 inch tall. And yes, exactly a 1/4 inch, all of them. And this one gardener, he was just the sweetest man. And he said, I don't know what to do. He said, my gardener has prostate cancer and just quit me about 3 weeks ago. And he goes, and I don't know what to do. And I said, you need drip irrigation. That's the first, because he had money. He was right. A wealthy older man. I said, first thing is you got to find another gardener to help you because he's older and he wasn't really a gardener. And I said, and you need drip irrigation in this garden because I said, I don't think you guys, I said, you can always turn it off in a rainy year, right?
Yeah.
And then use it the rest of the time because his garden was burnt up. It's kind of sad.
That is very sad. So dahlias are something, and there's a dahlia society and there's all different types, as big as a dinner plate, literally. Cactus flowered. Yeah.
They were gorgeous. Oh, we should link to our post that we did on dahlias versus zinnias.
Yeah, if you find it, because there was another thing I was supposed to post a link to and I couldn't find it. And I thought, oh, well, Dee made the promise, not Carol. So.
Okay, well, I will find the episode about where we did dahlia versus zinnia because I think I know exactly where it is because it was last year about this time and we were like, which would we grow? And then, and I'm actually doing my Bloom Day post today and you already got yours published.
Yep.
And there's a lot of zinnias in there. I don't do a lot of dahlias. I do Bishop of Llandaff and Bishop's Children. Those are small. So anyway, that's enough about dahlias.
That is enough about dahlia. Hit that next quote.
England doesn't have a summer. It has continuous autumn with a fortnight's variation here and there. Natasha Pulley, British author. And I wrote below that, that's not really true this year. They had summer in spades. And they were miserable. And the thing is they grow almost all of their warm weather vegetables in greenhouses. And several of them said we could have just planted them direct in the garden this year.
I was thinking the exact same thing because you showed on your Instagram stories and some greenhouses where they were growing the vegetables inside, which we always kind of laugh and snicker and, you have to grow your vegetables inside, but you can't, a glass house is a hot place in the summertime.
It sure is. So you said this week's vegetable is whichever vegetable I ate the most in the Cotswolds. I bet you can guess.
Well, I can guess because you wrote it down. You said you ate a lot of potatoes or potatoes.
I am burned out on potatoes. There were potatoes every night on the dinner menu. So I should explain. When you go on these group tours, you usually eat at your hotel because your hotel's out in the country between gardens. And so you have a fixed price menu and you do the selections in the daytime and then they prepare them at night and everybody eats together. And it doesn't make for a lot of variance. especially on the English breakfast, which I kind of hate. And also at night, in fact, one night the guys got, I don't know, they almost always do some sort of roasted meat. There usually was a vegetarian item. Sometimes I ordered it just to get away from roasted meat. So roast, pork roast, and salmon. They have salmon a lot. So the funniest night was when the guys ordered, I think it was roast pork, and it came out and it had roasted potatoes as one of the sides, and the other side was whipped potatoes. And we all burst out laughing, and we went, well, I guess these are the potatoes and these are the potatoes. And the guys just laughed and laughed because they didn't care. They like potatoes. So a lot of potatoes. A lot of potatoes.
I grew my potatoes in the fabric pots, the smart pots this year, and I dug out some of the first fingerlings this weekend.
Were they great?
Put them with the green beans. They were yum, very, very good. And I think I'm going to pick some more, and I'm going to roast them, drizzle them with a little olive oil and salt and pepper them and roast them, and then probably get some creamy dip or something to dip them in. That would be good.
Yeah, you could do a lot of things. A little spicy ranch, that would be delicious.
Oh, yeah. So my first fingerlings, and I'm like, why have I not grown fingerling potatoes before? And I thought, I am going to grow those every year.
And fingerlings are great for potato salad, too, because they're waxy. And waxy potatoes are better for potato salad than, say, russets, which make great baked potatoes. But I would never grow russets because you can buy, they're just the most common potato.
You can't find fingerlings as much, or if you find them, they're very expensive.
And they're older. And the thing is the potatoes that you grow yourself are amazing. And I did have some really good potatoes over there. They're very good at growing potatoes, cabbages, anything broccoli. We had a lot of broccolini, anything in the cole crop. That's what they do normally. Also on the breakfast menu every morning, there is hothouse tomatoes that have been broiled, which is like hell for me. Because I have all these tomatoes at home that are homegrown, and I'm not going to broil them. Yeah, why would I broil a tomato? Because it makes them mushy, and that might be fine in the winter, but in the summer, I'm going to eat that baby cold.
Well, they have, and you can do an online search for English breakfast, and it's like they've got everything on that plate. And it looks kind of disgusting because it looks like, they have all kinds of stuff on that plate. But the other thing is,
do you want to run down what the English breakfast actually is, just very quickly?
I can't remember everything. I mean,
I can do it.
Like,
ready?
Yeah, you've seen it.
I saw it every day, so I can tell you it never varies. So it is always scrambled eggs or fried eggs that are super hard on the bottom because they've kind of broiled them. So that's the eggs. Then there's sausages, which I can't eat because they have gluten in them. And then there's bacon, but they don't do bacon like we do. That bacon is called streaky bacon, and you never see streaky bacon. Rarely. Okay, if you're in an American hotel. It's kind of like, how Arkansas bacon looks? It's sort of ham-like. It's got a big chunk of ham. That's what their bacon looks like. So there's bacon. Now's where it gets weird. Are you ready? Baked beans.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Not baked beans like we eat here. They're runny, and they would like run into the rest of your food if you eat them. Broiled tomatoes, steamed giant mushrooms. Don't ask me why. Am I missing something? Oh, always a hash brown patty. Always. And, I can't forget blood sausage. That's your English breakfast. And I would eat 2 fried eggs and a broiled tomato every day. Yuck. Okay, I sound like I didn't have a good time. I had a great time. I'm just glad to be home. I like ice. Ice is really important to me, I discovered on this trip. Because it was hot.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Well, I liked your pictures of kitchen gardens, and in the one, they had this big stakes, and they had put a clay pot on top of each one. I like the look of that. I think it's neat, and I thought I should do that in my garden. I don't know why I don't. I forget.
Why you forget to do it?
But I thought I should put a stake on each bed, and I could put a little clay pot, and I could number it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could number my beds.
You could. You know why they do that, don't you? Why they put the little pots on top of the stakes?
Because they're putting a netting up over it to keep the birds out.
And sometimes they set the netting under the pot. And the pot is what holds the netting onto the stake. And it does look really charming. Really, really charming.
I just want decorative. It's decorative.
Well, and I think they leave it decorative after that. So there you go.
All right. I'll do this next quote.
Good deal.
Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. Neil Gaiman. And on the bookshelf, I got an audiobook that was so charming, Dee, that I actually bought the printed copy of Botanical Folktales of Britain and Ireland by Lisa Schneidow. This is a very charming book with very charming stories.
Yep.
And if you like fairy tales and you like gardening, this is the perfect combination. And, just little, and they're stories that have just been handed down generation to generation in Ireland and Britain. So Scotland, England.
That's cool.
And I listened to the audio version, and I think only this one's out on audio. She also has another book, Woodland Folktales of Britain and Ireland, that I have on order, and it's coming probably in another week or so. And then on October 1st, she has a third book coming out called River Folktales of Britain and Ireland. But they're funny stories. There's a story in here about Mossy Coat, which is the precursor story to Cinderella. Mm-hmm. There's a story that's similar to Jack and the Beanstalk that she tells, but she talks about things like foxglove being the fairy bell, and that if you had wanted to know whether your disagreeable human child was a changeling, like a fairy or something, you could put it on the end of a shovel and then swing it out the door 3 times and say, "If you're a fairy, away with you." And apparently that would cause fairy children to die. And the human ones would become much better behaved. Because if somebody put me on the end of a shovel and swung me out the door 3 times,
I would be better behaved also.
I would be too. And then there's another story I bookmarked in here about tulip pixies.
Cute.
The pixies would leave their babies in this lady's tulips, and she had a beautiful garden, and then she died, and it's the story of what happens to the garden after she dies. And the new owner removed all the tulips, and then that made the pixies mad.
Yeah, you don't want to make pixies mad. Chaos ensues.
So anyway, it's a charming book. It's Botanical Folktales of Britain and Ireland. And I don't know how I found it right before you went to England, but like I said, and look at that pretty cover. I bought that.
I think, yeah. I'm surprised you bought a book. You don't like to buy books, so.
When I really like a book and think I would probably go back to that book,
right,
then I like to have it on my bookshelf. So Botanical Folktales of Britain and Ireland, and then Woodland Folktales and River Folktales, all by Lisa Schneidow. And she's a storyteller in Great Britain. And she talks about in the beginning about growing up in wild areas that they would play in. And, and I don't know about you. When I was a kid, there were a couple wild areas that we were allowed to play in.
Sure.
Kids today don't have these areas to play in, which is really kind of sad.
Yeah, they don't. They don't have them, and that is sad.
And we were little, when I was 5 and 6, there was a woods catty corner across the street that we would go and play in.
Yep.
Until the people built the house on it.
Right.
And, there was a creek and we would go wading around in that creek and, it was good. Good times.
It's good times.
So that was our book.
Want me to do the next
or
quote?
3 books. Please do.
I've been walking around London for the last 30 years, and I find something fresh in it every day. That's by Walter Besant. And you chose our Dirt, which I absolutely love, and I tried to get to see while I was there, but I only had one day in London, and I was asleep for some of it because of jet lag. So why don't you tell about it, because you're the one who found it.
Well, I only know from the articles about it, but the Tower of London, they transformed for the Platinum Jubilee. They created a wildflower super bloom, and so they planted millions, I would guess, of wildflower seeds, and it has been blooming all summer long.
Right, and they planted it in the moat because I don't think people understand what I've been to the Tower of London, and the Tower of London is huge. It's a great big huge complex, and there are these great shows called Secrets of the Tower of London. It's on Smithsonian. We'll link to it. I just thought of it. Anyway, Bill and I watch them because we loved the Tower of London so much, and it has a great big moat around it, but it's been grassed in, and that's where they put the super bloom.
Yeah, and they've got a picture on here. They've also put in a display of ceramic poppies at some time, and
well, that was for wasn't that for the 100 years of after World War I?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was 2014. And so, but this year they planted this super bloom, and I guess, it's had good moments and bad moments, and every once in a while, somebody I know will have been there. We know Helen Battersby up there in Toronto, Canada. I believe that she was there this summer.
She was.
And posted some pictures, and that's where I tagged you and said if you could go.
Right.
But, when you only have one day and you're recovering from jet lag, I suppose going to Super Bloom isn't the top of your list.
No, because I'd have to get a taxi and go all the way into London, and I was right at the airport, waiting on the other group to get there. Bill and I were. Bill, I, and Marianne. We were all there. The other thing I thought of when you put this down is that they're doing what's called the Queen's Canopy, where they're planting trees all over Great Britain, because Great Britain sawed down a great many of its trees to build ship masts when they built ships of wood. And so they're trying to restore some of their trees and different things. Anyway, that was one question we asked a lot of the gardeners when we were on the trip. And yes, they are all planting trees. It was really cool because they were like, yes, here are my trees for the Queen. They were very, very proud of it. It was a cool thing.
Yeah, Monty Don has talked quite a bit about that on Gardener's World.
Yeah.
Because the Brits, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction sometimes. They also plowed down way too many wild areas and fence rows when they realized how vulnerable their food supply was during World War II. They didn't have enough food to feed everybody, so they plowed up too much. So they are trying to restore a lot of those areas, which is good.
Right, because they're an island and they had to feed people and there was a huge blockade. I mean, it was complicated, so they had to do what they had to do. And then they were really poor after World War II, and it took a long time for them to rebuild their society because they were bombed by the Germans. Yeah. The interesting thing, I'll talk about it more in the next part.
Writing is an exploration. You start from nothing and learn as you go. Next part is our rabbit holes. Dee, tell us about yours, because you went down a rabbit hole because of your trip.
I did. We got to go to Prince Charles's garden. It's Highgrove. I think they said 30,000 people visit it a year. It's hard to visit it. You have to go through some hoops to visit it. I mean, he is the future King of England. Anyway, I think he's really kind to share his garden. And what I was amazed at is, some people poo-pooed that garden way back when he first started it. And the reason they did is that he did a lot of innovative ideas. And when we were on our tour, and I didn't write this down, but you're going to have to help me. Okay, so Language of Butterflies, there was the lady who studied the monarchs. And she was super famous because she was a very rich lady. We talked about her.
And I can't remember either. So it will show up in our show notes.
It will. Anyway, they talked about her. And then they talked about, was it Dodo who we talked about, who was the, I should have written all this down, but I didn't know I was going to talk about it. Dodo was the Duchess of Devonshire. Wasn't she Devonshire? And she was like super famous. Yeah. Well, he listened to her, and he also listened to a couple of other people, and he developed a garden for pollinators before it was cool. And he planted a meadow before it was cool. And so people made fun of him because, they had all the rain they needed and they could plant anything they wanted to grow. And then now his garden is a showplace for innovative technologies and innovative farming practices. And his meadow, they had just cut it back and there were all these wildflowers that sprung up. But the rabbit hole part of it is he had a fabulous Phlox paniculata, which is tall garden phlox. and it was called Peacock Neon Purple. I could not take a picture of it because you're not allowed to take pictures in his actual garden for obvious reasons, security, right? But it is the most beautiful phlox I think I've ever seen. And I don't think it's in the United States yet, but I'm hopeful that it will be here soon. He also had neon cherry. And the sweet docent, she went back and found out all the information about both neon purple and neon cherry, peacock cherry. And the colors together, it was scrumptious, and there were pollinators everywhere, butterflies, and all the peacock cherry red. That's the other one. So Gardener Direct seems to carry it. I don't know if they're US or UK, but everybody, of course, is sold out. Because think about it, 30,000 people go through that garden. They're all going to want peacock neon purple. In the US, it seems like we've only got peacock white and one other one, but they're all extremely mildew resistant, high flowering, high nectar plants, which is pretty darn cool.
It is pretty cool. So now you got me kind of like, maybe if Dee finds that, I should find that. So my rabbit hole is composting.
Okay.
So my oldest sister sent me a text, I think on Thursday, and said, what 7-year-old do you know wants to start his own compost bin? Her grandson, they've been collecting pine cones and, trying to decide what to do with them. And he says, we should start a compost bin. And then he knew kind of what to do. I don't know where he learned it. That you should, you put leaves and branches and stuff, no meat.
He's the smartest little kid.
7 years old. He's a garden prodigy, I think.
I think he is too. I think he's going to grow up and be something really special in the gardening world.
So she sends me this text and like, can we build one out of wood? And I'm like, you absolutely can build one out of wood. And I'm thinking, you don't have a compost bin? I mean, she's always grown vegetables and stuff. And it's like, why doesn't she have a compost bin? Anyway, so then like I sent her a picture of mine made out of wires, and the next day they must have gone to Tractor Supply or somewhere and found a wire compost bin. They had it all set up, and she sent a video of my nephew and his little sister, who's 5, with their little rakes, raking the first stuff into their new compost bin. It's at Nana and Papa's.
You have got to totally send me that video just to look at.
It is
that
so
is
cute.
So cute.
But Nana and Papa now have a compost bin, and the kids, the great place to throw stuff, because she sent me a text and she said, can I put morning glory seedlings in there? And I'm like,
well, you could.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't, though, because you'll have morning glories for the rest of your entire world.
Well, apparently she has morning glories for the rest of her life, because she says, I've been paying the kids a penny a piece for every seedling. And the oldest one has earned $5, so that's 500 seedlings. And the 5-year-old has earned $3, so that's 800 seedlings altogether. And I'm like, I don't put those in the trash.
Yeah. No, don't put them in the compost, because the compost will just feed them, and then it'll just be a giant compost bin of morning glories everywhere.
But, they're worried about the usual things, like how do you keep raccoons out and things like that. And I said, mine's full of overgrown squash. I hate to admit that. Tomatoes that split, they all go right on that compost bin. And I just pile up leaves, and if the raccoons get a few, they get a few. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't get my corn.
Yeah, I'm amazed that raccoons didn't get your corn. I think that's super cool.
Anyway, so that was my rabbit hole. We've got somebody else who's composting, and he is 7 years old.
I'm so impressed. That's so cool. She needs to build them a sunflower house at Nana and Papa's.
She does.
Because she could do the sunflowers, and then she could do she could also do hollyhocks with the sunflowers if she wanted. Yes. And then she could do the morning glories across, because, you just take the twine and go back and forth, and then the morning glories make the roof. And Sharon Lovejoy would be so happy. It's funny, that book has just had a life of its own. She gets pictures and videos all the time of people's sunflower houses.
Well, I got to give a shout out to that sunflower that All America Selection sent us called
Gorgeous.
Concert Bell.
Yeah. I
put it on Instagram. Just the one has started to flower. It's the top flower on my Garden Bloggers Bloom Day post for August.
Right.
It is it is really something. And I thought my big sunflowers have already gone over. I mean, the squirrels are eating all the seeds. I would totally plant those. Those would make a nice little sunflower house.
Yeah, they would.
They're about 6 feet tall.
They're the perfect height.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous.
So that's our
Anyway.
goal next year for your niece and nephew. We're going to get them a sunflower house.
There you go. I'll let my sister know.
Garden
She'll
commissions.
be delighted. Okay.
All right.
What's yours?
In my garden, I'm going to take the bagged compost I bought and put it on my potager so that I can plant for fall. I'm going to do a few greens in the garden. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to start seeds indoors for lettuce, but I'll be honest, I don't think so. I think I'll just do some shredded leaves and some compost and put out some lettuce seeds and see if they take. Because it's supposed to cool off on Wednesday, which is when this publishes. We're 101 and 101, and then it goes crud down to 87, which is fantastic. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to keep removing daylily scapes because they've all turned brown. Those are the stems. And I'm just going to keep weeding because the garden is really messy because I left town.
My garden's really messy because I didn't get out there and weed. So I am also going to be weeding, picking green beans, picking tomatoes. I said that I was going to start some cabbages and stuff. I didn't ever get the seeds started. So hopefully the little greenhouse will have a couple of seedlings I can get.
They will, or the box store. They'll have it.
I
know.
Yeah.
I know.
I stopped by there last week and confirmed that as soon as the fall pansies and violas are in, they will text me because why not?
Oh my gosh. The pansy thing, it never ends.
It never ends.
I mean, they're adorable, but really. I bought you a card in England and it's pressed flowers and they're pansies. And I was going to mail it to you, but I couldn't get to the post office box. I was going to let you get Royal Mail, and it was going to be a pansy card. I think I'll just...
Oh, that was going to be so fun.
I think I'll
get Oklahoma Mail.
I think I will just send you a card with the card in it. You know what I'm saying? So you can use it. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Well, that is it. We want to thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review. That helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your gardening friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
And don't forget to subscribe to our new Substack newsletter, which is my favorite thing to read in the week, The Garden Angelist at Substack.com, and it's also linked in our show notes.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate today. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.